Over the past month, the garden has experienced a huge shift in energy, and everything is beginning to look a little tired as it takes a breather and waits for winter to set in. And I think we can apply that with our own lives. We've had a really busy spring and summer, but now it's so nice to have a little bit of space and to finally allow our minds to wander. And if you're thinking about creating your own vegetable garden next year, then this video is going to show you 3 really important things that you can't afford to ignore. And of course, I want to thank today's sponsor Squarespace for being such a strong supporter of this channel and making videos like this possible. So if you're looking at creating an online store or a blog or simply a website, they can give you amazing tools to create a beautiful online presence. There's something so therapeutic about coming out on a really still autumn's day and all I can hear is birdsong, and it's so nice to have this breathing space. And the first thing, if you're thinking about creating a vegetable garden, the most important thing that you can't afford to forget is your vision. And my feeling is through November and December, all you need to do is just think about your vision. Don't worry about getting all the tools and equipment and everything that you need. Just think about things that you really want to get from your space. And I think the best way of putting it is being able to dare to dream. And I don't think we ever get enough opportunity in our busy lives to do that. I even think experienced gardeners should dream a lot more about what they want to do, because it's a bit easy to get caught in that trap and that never-ending cycle and settling for less. So if you're just starting out, you might not know where to begin and feel a little bit overwhelmed or daunted in terms of how do I approach getting this vision. And for me, I think it's about not setting expectations and using the next 2 months to really consume as much inspiration as possible. So that could be reading books and listening to podcasts, watching countless YouTube videos. In fact, there is so much content on YouTube, I don't think you'll have time for anything else. Also reading articles and keeping a diary where you can put down all of your visions and dreams and goals and things which you just think will work really well for your space. When you're just starting off and looking at getting some gardening tools, you can feel a bit like a rabbit in headlights and just feel completely overwhelmed with the different variation of tools that are out there. But at the moment, a notepad, a pen, and your imagination are the 3 tools that you need to get started before you start thinking about everything else. So I'm just going to finish getting off as much as I can from the runner bean structure, and then I'm going to go through and save a load of runner bean seeds before the rest of it goes on the compost bin. Now there's so much information out there about how to think about access and water and aspect, you know, where the sun is going, and I think these are all things that you'll pick up when you're doing your research and reading and watching videos. However, something that does get overlooked quite a lot is the climate, and I think that's the most important thing. So I'll let you kind of learn the more mundane things that you really need to know that do make a big difference and a big help. But I do want to highlight the fact that knowing about your climate is huge, because it makes you set expectations. Because you might, for example, here in Wales, you might get really excited about the prospect of, also this is not working with gloves, you might get really excited by the prospect of growing something like a pineapple outside until you learn it's just not going to work. So with a degree, you have to control things and spend a bit of time looking through things, and there are so many books out there which really help. But just know that knowing about your first and last frost date is really, really important, because you kind of plan your whole year around that, as well as how cold it can get during winter. And these are all really important things that you need to know. So I've got a couple of links in the video description which you can use, so you can see when your first and last frost date is. And another thing that you've got to think about climate is also wind, and looking for sheltered areas. But that's just more of a quick one, which I think people can easily forget when you get really excited about everything and know where the sunniest spots are. But knowing about climate and the temperature will really help you understand what is and what isn't possible. So that's next year's seed already, and the rest is going to go on the compost bin, and then I'm going to go back and clear the rest of that bed and set it for winter, because the structure I'm not going to make until around February or March. If I make it now, knowing how bad our winters can get, is going to start affecting the wood. And then I'll also tell you about the third thing that you can't afford to forget. Part of me actually enjoys being a little bit destructive, because it can kind of release a little bit of negativity without harming anyone. And so I'm just going to continue taking this down. And the final thing, the third most important thing, which you cannot afford to forget, is that every single gardener, no matter how experienced they are or not, experience failures. And so many people get put off if quite a major failure happens, and I can completely see why, but it happens to everyone. And so, for example, this year, two failures that pop right into my mind is, firstly, I planted the Brussels sprouts a little bit too early, and they got a bit excited and have kind of bolted or burst in a way. So maybe the other set of Brussels sprouts will be fine for Christmas. And the other one is I planted the Florence fennel a little bit too early, and it bolted with all the sun. But it's so easy to get bogged down with all the failures that we can forget all of the successes. And the great thing about gardening, which I love to remind people, especially if you're feeling a bit down, is that there's always next year. There's always another growing season. So you need to just be realistic and accept failures, because you're always going to learn from things. And I know you can apply this to so many things in life, but I don't think it could be any truer for gardening. I think that's a perfect example. I understand that failures can seem really demoralizing, and in the moment it's as if it's the worst thing in the world. But just taking a few days of forgetting about it and then looking back and having a think about why it may have happened is a really good way of approaching it, rather than letting your emotions take the better of you in the moment. And this is something really hard to learn, and you're never going to be perfect at it. But you so need to look at all of the successes, and even if it means you have to make a list of successes which you can always go back and remind yourself about, sometimes just really small things like this can make such a big difference. Another thing that you need to remember is that quite a lot of the time it's not just going to be you experiencing that failure. For example, if you have a freak late frost, then a lot of people in your area are also going to have the same issues. So just remember that gardening is not 100% foolproof and you can never prepare, but by increasing diversity of things which you're growing, you're actually going to far lessen the opportunity of failures getting in your way and getting you down. As I was filming this video, there was something else which popped into my mind, which I just had to mention and just couldn't miss it because I think it's so important. And the thing that came to my mind was remembering the fact that the first year of growing food is always going to feel like the one which requires the most effort, because you've got to put in all the infrastructure and learn a lot, and you might approach the end of the year and think, oh my gosh, was it even worth it? And this is quite a likely feeling, to be honest. However, what you've got to remember is you've then got a year of practice under your belt. You've already put in most of the infrastructure, so your raised beds and everything, and you've got that muscle memory, so jobs become a lot easier. And the second year, you will notice a massive difference. So don't give up in the first year. It is going to be the hardest thing, but it's like taking on any new skill or new job. You've got to see through the hard part, which takes a bit too much time, and you're thinking, is it really worth it? But very quickly you learn how to become more efficient, and by year 2, as long as you approach everything with an open mind, there's not going to be any looking back. Right, I've got to put this in the compost now. Just before I finish off this video, I want to thank Squarespace for being continued supporters for this channel. And what's really important is, if you want to create a website or a blog or anything like that, is being able to get the right message to the right people. Now with Squarespace, you can collect email addresses through your website and send subscribers content which matters most to them using unique mailing lists. So if you want to get started and give this a go, you can head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and then if you're ready to purchase a domain or a website, then head to squarespace.com/HuwsNursery for 10% off. I'm just going to quickly recap what was said in this video, and the first one is to get a vision and create your vision and never lose sight of your vision, because you've always got that goal or something to work towards. And then to also understand about climate and spend a bit of time looking at this. And then finally, to not worry at all about failures. And by having a really clear vision, I think it makes you kind of deal with failures in a much better way, because you're thinking about the much bigger picture rather than, say, losing your carrot crop or something like that. And as well, if a failure should happen, or you've just had a really bad year, then never forget that there's always another year just around the corner to try it out again, or to try it slightly differently to find a method which works for you. I really hope that you found this video useful. Now I need to put quite a light layer of compost over this raised bed, but I'm not going to hold you, because I want you to focus on creating your visions over the next 2 months and spending as much time as possible getting inspired by things. So thank you very much for watching. Good luck with making your visions, and I'll see you again soon. Goodbye.